Welcome to the Facilitators Deep Dive Podcast, your podcast on your way to facilitation mastery. Welcome to this deep dive into digital storytelling. You've given us quite a mix of sources and some pieces from Brian Alexander's The New Digital Storytelling too. So it seems like you're interested in how we weave narratives in this digital world and how the very nature of storytelling is changing.
Yeah, you're right. It's not just about slapping a story onto a website or screen. It's almost like digital technology is letting us create a whole new category of storytelling with its own unique DNA.
Okay, so let's unpack that a bit. When you say unique DNA, what specifically comes to mind? What makes digital storytelling so different from, say, just sitting around a campfire telling stories?
Well, think about it. In a digital world, you have interactivity. So the audience isn't just listening, they're making choices. They shape the story. It's something new. I mean, we saw it in those Choose Your Own Adventure books. But, digital platforms kind of blow the possibilities wide open.
So even those really early text-based adventure games on computers,
Yeah.
those were already hinting at this new type of storytelling.
Absolutely. And it goes beyond just clicking on different options. Think about how stories can unfold in real time on social media. We saw that with the War of the Worlds Twitter event. People felt like they were experiencing an alien invasion firsthand, that immediacy, that blurring of reality and fiction. It's really powerful.
That's a great example. It's fascinating how people were already pushing those boundaries even before the web became mainstream.
Exactly. Like with hypertext fiction, back in the pre-web days, people would use software to create stories, where you would click on highlighted words and then jump to a different part of the narrative. It challenged the linear way we were used to reading.
So instead of turning pages, you're navigating a network of interconnected ideas, pathways. It's like the story becomes this landscape.
You got it. And those early virtual communities, places like The Well, they were like incubators for digital storytelling. So people weren't just sharing messages there, they were crafting online identities, building relationships, and weaving these narratives together.
It's almost like those online forums. They were prototypes for the social media platforms we use now.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just about fictional stories, right? Even urban legends and chain emails, they were a form of digital storytelling.
Absolutely. Even a scam email, relies on a narrative to hook you in. It's a story to manipulate, but it's still using storytelling elements. And those stories, they spread like wildfire online.
It's like the internet gave those stories wings. But then the web came along. What were some of the turning points for digital storytelling as the web started to take off?
Well, one big shift was the move from text-based to multimedia. Suddenly, you weren't just reading words on a screen, you were experiencing stories through images, sound, video, animation, all combined in really creative ways.
Thinking back to those early projects, it's amazing how they were pushing the boundaries, even with very limited technology. I remember seeing projects like Dreaming Methods, using Flash to create these rich and interactive narratives.
Yes, Dreaming Methods was groundbreaking. It really showed the potential of multimedia storytelling for creating immersive and emotional experiences.
It's funny, Flash feels so dated now, but it was such a powerful tool. It makes me wonder if we're overlooking any other platforms or technologies from that era that might hold valuable lessons for us today.
That's a really good point. Sometimes we get so caught up in the latest shiny tech, we forget about the pioneers who paved the way.
Exactly. Like we're standing on the shoulders of giants. It's important to acknowledge that history. Alongside those experimental projects, we saw the rise of organizations like the Center for Digital Storytelling. What was their impact on the field?
Well, the Center for Digital Storytelling, they really helped to democratize digital storytelling. They focused on empowering ordinary people to share their personal stories using video. They recognize that everyone has a story to tell, and they provided the tools and the training to bring those stories to life.
So they shifted the focus from the technology to the power of personal narratives. And around the same time, we saw blogs explode. What role did blogs play in this evolution of digital storytelling?
Blogs were fascinating. They started as simple online diaries, but then they quickly evolved. People were using blogs to, serialize stories, develop characters, and even share archival material in new ways. It was like a new kind of literary journal, but it was accessible to anyone with an internet connection.
And it wasn't just individual voices.
Yeah.
Right? They also gave rise to communities, conversations around shared interest.
Absolutely. Blogs became hubs for like-minded people to connect, share ideas, even collaborate on storytelling projects. It was a really exciting time to be involved in online writing and storytelling.
It was like blogs were the testing ground for a lot of the social features we see today on platforms like Facebook and Twitter. Speaking of which, how did the rise of social media impact digital storytelling?
Social media completely changed the game. Platforms like Twitter, they introduced this idea of micro-narratives, where you had to tell a story in just a few characters. It forced people to be concise and creative. And it also created this sense of immediacy and connection in real time.
Thinking back to those early days of Twitter, it felt like being plugged into a live newsfeed, where everyone was a potential storyteller. Do you remember any specific examples that captured that real-time storytelling magic?
Well, one that stands out is the Arab Spring uprisings. People were using Twitter to share firsthand accounts of what was happening. They were bypassing traditional media outlets, shaping the narrative in real time. It was a powerful example of citizen journalism and the democratizing force of social media.
That's a great example. It shows how digital storytelling can have a real impact on events in the real world. And it wasn't just Twitter, right? Facebook became a platform for storytelling as well.
Absolutely. Facebook profiles, they became like these canvases for people to construct their online identities, curating photos, sharing updates, crafting a narrative of their lives. It was a form of storytelling, but it blurred the lines between reality and performance.
It's funny how we've gone from these cutting-edge multimedia projects to something as simple as a Facebook profile. It just shows how much digital storytelling has permeated our lives online.
It really has. And let's not forget about image-based platforms like Flickr. Even a single image, combined with a title and some comments, can tell a powerful story. Think about the Tank Man photo from Tiananmen Square. That single image captured a moment and sparked a global conversation.
You're right, it's like a visual haiku. And with smartphones, photography and video became more accessible, so it turned everyone into a potential storyteller. But we've been talking a lot about visual storytelling. What about the power of sound? How did audio storytelling evolve in this digital age?
Well, we saw this resurgence of audio storytelling through podcasts. Podcasts offered a new way to experience these narratives, freeing us from the screen, letting us listen on the go.
I love that about podcasts. It's like having this personal storyteller in your pocket. And the range of content is amazing. From those really educational podcasts like In Our Time to totally fictional narratives like Welcome to Night Vale, which creates this eerie and surreal world just through sound.
Exactly. Podcasts have revitalized audio storytelling, proving that the spoken word still holds immense power to captivate and transport us.
And let's not forget about the phenomenon of podcasts like Serial, which gripped the world with its true crime narrative. Told in this serialized format, it felt like the golden age of radio drama had returned in a new digital form.
Absolutely. Serial really showed the power of audio, its ability to create suspense, intimacy, and an emotional connection with the listener. And speaking of emotional connection, we can't forget web video's role in digital storytelling.
YouTube. It's a whole universe of stories, isn't it? From those silly cat videos to documentaries to full-fledged web series, YouTube's become a huge force in digital storytelling.
It really has. And web series have blurred the lines between reality and fiction, creating these hybrid forms of storytelling that engage viewers in new ways. You remember Lonely Girl 15?
How could I forget Lonely Girl 15? It was so groundbreaking. It felt so real, so authentic. And then it turns out to be this fictional narrative, playing with our assumptions about what's real and what's staged online.
Exactly. It made us question everything we saw online.
Right.
And then there's the Slender Man myth, emerging and spreading through web video, demonstrating the power of this medium to create chilling stories that tap into our collective fears.
It's amazing how a single creepy image or video can spark a global phenomenon like that. It really speaks to the viral nature of digital storytelling and how these narratives can spread and evolve online. And it wasn't just YouTube, though, right? There were other platforms for web video storytelling as well.
Of course. Platforms like VoiceThread, they allowed for multimodal storytelling, combining audio, video, images, creating even richer narratives. It gave people more tools.
It's like we were moving beyond the limitations of just text, exploring all these different ways to tell stories.
Exactly. And all of this, from hypertext fiction to social media narratives to web video, has paved the way for what we're seeing today. This incredible convergence of storytelling forms in the digital realm. But before we get too far ahead, we need to talk about a medium that's been a storytelling powerhouse for decades. Games.
Games. Where do they fit into all of this? I mean, we often think of games being about entertainment, competition.
Yeah.
But they're credible storytelling platforms as well.
You're right. Games are powerful because they allow us to step into different worlds, embody characters, and experience stories in a much more immersive and interactive way.
It's true. Even casual games, like those simple puzzle games we play on our phones, often have some kind of narrative woven into them. It might be a simple story about rescuing a princess or escaping a maze, but it's still a story.
Exactly. And then you have games explicitly designed to tell stories, like interactive fiction. They're all about giving players choices, choices that shape the narrative, creating a unique experience for each player.
I love how interactive fiction puts you in the driver's seat so you can become a part of the story. It's like those choose-your-own-adventure books we talked about.
But taken to a whole other level.
Exactly. It's so different from passively consuming a book or a movie. You're actively shaping the narrative. That makes the story feel more personal, more engaging.
And let's not forget about the role of mystery and exploration in game narratives. So many games, from Myst to The Legend of Zelda, they're all about uncovering secrets, solving puzzles, piecing together a story bit by bit.
You're right. It's like you're a digital detective, following clues, unraveling a mystery. And that sense of discovery is so compelling. But games aren't just about those small-scale experiences either. They're also large-scale games. They create these vast, immersive worlds, worlds with really rich narratives. Absolutely. Games like Fallout 3, BioShock, and The Witcher 3, those are incredible examples of world building and storytelling. They're like these interactive novels or movies, but with even more depth.
Exactly. These games, they use character development, dialogue, sound design, cutscenes to create cinematic experiences that rival traditional films. And they often tackle complex themes and ideas, prompting players to think critically about the world.
It's like stepping into a movie set,
Yeah.
but you're the main character, making choices. It's a level of immersion and agency that you just can't get from traditional media.
That's exactly it. And these large-scale games, they blur the lines between player and audience even further, because your choices and actions within the game have this direct impact on the narrative. It's like a form of collaborative storytelling.
It's like we're all becoming co-authors
Right.
of the stories we're experiencing in these digital worlds. And that brings us to another interesting aspect of digital storytelling, one that I'm really curious to explore further: combinatorial storytelling.
Combinatorial storytelling. That's a concept that really captures the essence of what's happening in the digital age. It's this idea that stories are no longer confined to a single platform or format. They can sprawl across websites, social media, video games, real-world events. It's storytelling without boundaries.
I love that. So it's like the story itself becomes an ecosystem
Mm.
with different parts interconnected. Can you give me a specific example of combinatorial storytelling?
Sure. Think about alternate reality games. They're also called ARGs. They blend the real world with the digital, creating these immersive experiences that unfold across websites, social media, physical locations, even phone calls. So the players, they have to piece together clues and solve puzzles to progress the narrative.
Wow, that's incredible. It's like the whole world becomes a stage for the story, and the players are these active participants. It's immersive storytelling on a whole other level.
Exactly. ARGs are this perfect example of how digital storytelling is breaking down traditional boundaries and creating new forms of engagement. And speaking of breaking down boundaries, let's talk about mobile storytelling. Our phones have become such powerful storytelling devices.
You're right. Our phones are like portable storytelling studios. They let us create and consume stories on the go, anytime, anywhere. And with features like GPS and augmented reality, the possibilities are endless.
They are. Think about the potential of apps for location-based storytelling, where the story unfolds as you move through the real world. Or AR, using augmented reality to superimpose digital characters or objects onto your surroundings, creating a mixed reality experience.
So it's like our phones are magic wands that unlock stories hidden in the world around us. The fact that anyone with a smartphone can create and share stories is incredible.
It is. It's democratizing storytelling. But it's important to acknowledge that mobile platforms also have their limitations. You know that small screen size and limited functionality can make it challenging to tell really complex stories.
That's a good point. It's a balancing act. Between possibilities and constraints, what about e-readers? They seem like a natural fit for digital storytelling, but they haven't quite lived up to their potential, have they?
That's a great question. E-readers do have the potential to be more than just digital books. Imagine these interactive multimedia storytelling experiences designed for e-readers, taking advantage of touchscreens and internet connectivity.
That would be amazing. I can imagine reading a story and being able to interact with the characters,
Yeah.
explore different settings, or even watch videos. But are we there yet? Are e-readers capable of delivering those kinds of experiences?
Not quite. Right now, e-readers are limited in terms of their interactivity and multimedia support. But the technology is always evolving, so who knows what the future holds?
That's the exciting part. The future of digital storytelling. It's wide open. We've come so far from those early experiments, and it feels like we're just scratching the surface.
I agree. And as technology evolves, so too will the art of storytelling. We're on the cusp of a new era, driven by digital technology, but ultimately grounded in the human desire to share stories and connect. Welcome back to your deep dive on digital storytelling.
It's amazing how much ground we've covered. From those early experiments with hypertext fiction to the explosion of social media and web video, it feels like we've witnessed this whole evolution in just a few decades.
It is remarkable how quickly things have changed. But now that we've explored that historical landscape, I think it's time to shift gears a bit and focus on what makes digital storytelling tick. What are the key ingredients that make these stories so compelling?
Okay, I'm ready to get tactical.
Yeah.
What are some of those secret sauce elements that make a digital story really stand out?
One key ingredient is structure. Just like a traditional story, a digital story needs a clear narrative arc to keep the audience engaged. You need a beginning that hooks them in, a middle that develops the plot and the characters, and an ending that provides some kind of resolution.
That makes sense. It's like taking your audience on a journey. But how does structure work in the digital realm, where you've got all these different platforms and formats?
That's a great question. Digital storytelling often involves what we call segmented storytelling. So the story might be broken up into smaller chunks, delivered across multiple platforms or over time.
So instead of one long, continuous narrative, you're creating a series of episodes or chapters. I can see how that would be effective, especially in the digital age where people are consuming content on the go.
Exactly. It's about meeting your audience where they are, on their terms. Take podcasts, for example. Each episode is like a self-contained unit, but they often contribute to a larger narrative that unfolds over time.
It's like a TV series where each episode has its own little arc, but you're also invested in that long-term story, playing out across multiple seasons.
You got it. And this episodic structure, it isn't limited to podcasts either. Think about web series or even social media campaigns that unfold over time. They're all tapping into this idea of segmentation to keep the audience engaged and coming back for more.
So structure in digital storytelling is about more than just having a beginning, middle, and end. It's about how you pace the delivery of the story, how you break it up, and how you use different platforms to create anticipation.
Precisely. It's about creating a rhythm, a flow that keeps the audience hooked. But structure is only one piece of the puzzle. Another crucial element is personal presence.
Personal presence. What do you mean by that?
It's all about the characters. Who are the people driving the story? What are their motivations? What makes them relatable and compelling?
I can see how that would be important. It's the characters that make us care about a story. We connect with their struggles, their triumphs, their flaws.
Exactly. And in digital storytelling, personal presence can take many forms. You might have a first-person narrator guiding us through the story, or a third-person narrator providing an objective perspective. Or you might have multiple characters sharing their viewpoints, creating a more complex narrative.
I love how digital storytelling allows for those multiple perspectives. It's like you're getting a glimpse into different people's minds, seeing the world through their eyes.
It is. And the way personal presence is conveyed can vary depending on the platform. In blogs, for example, you often get this strong sense of the author's personality through their writing style. Their voice feels very intimate.
It's like having a conversation with the author,
Yeah.
getting a glimpse into their thoughts and feelings.
Exactly. And on social media platforms, like Facebook, personal presence is all about creating a believable character profile, complete with photos, updates, interactions with other characters. It's blurring the lines between the real and the fictional.
It's like those characters are living virtual lives. And we're getting a front row seat to the drama.
Precisely. And let's not forget about audio storytelling, like podcasts. The power of the human voice can be really effective in creating intimacy and connection with the listener.
It's true. A skilled podcast host can make you feel like you're having a one-on-one conversation, even though you're listening through your headphones.
It's the magic of audio. It taps into something primal. But whether it's text, images, video, audio, establishing personal presence is key to creating a digital story that resonates with the audience.
So we've talked about structure and personal presence. What other ingredients are essential for a compelling digital story?
Another important element, one that's really unique to digital storytelling, is what we call temporality.
Temporality. That sounds interesting. What exactly does that mean?
It's all about how time is handled in the story. Digital stories, just like traditional stories, unfold over time. But the way time is manipulated and experienced can be very different in the digital realm.
Can you give me some examples?
Sure, think about Twitter. It's all about immediacy, real-time storytelling. Each tweet is like a snapshot, a fleeting thought or observation, captured in 280 characters.
It's like this stream of consciousness, a constant flow, creating a sense of urgency.
Exactly. And then you have blogs, which often adopt a chronological structure, with posts arranged in reverse chronological order. So it's like reading a diary or a journal, following the author's thoughts and experiences as they unfold.
And then podcasts, they can manipulate time in even more creative ways. You can have flashbacks, flash forwards, multiple timelines converging. It's like a time machine built into your storytelling toolkit.
Precisely. And that's one of the exciting things about digital storytelling. It gives us these new ways to play with time, to create suspense, to build tension, to surprise the audience.
It's like we're no longer bound by the linear constraints of traditional storytelling. We can jump around, create these parallel universes, and explore different possibilities.
You got it. And this manipulation of time is just one of the many ways that digital storytelling is pushing the boundaries of narrative.
So we've talked about structure, personal presence, and temporality. What other tricks do digital storytellers use to keep their audiences engaged?
Well, one technique that's really effective in the digital world is segmentation, which we touched on earlier. It's all about breaking a story down into smaller, more digestible chunks that can be consumed across multiple platforms and devices.
I remember you mentioned podcasts as an example of segmentation. So each episode is self-contained, but they all contribute to a larger narrative arc.
Exactly. And segmentation isn't just about time either. It can be about space, too. Think about a transmedia story that unfolds across a website, a blog, a social media campaign, even real-world events.
So it's like a treasure hunt, where the story is scattered across different platforms. And the audience has to piece it all together.
You got it. And segmentation is effective for several reasons. First, it makes the story more accessible. People can consume it in bite-sized chunks on their own time and on their preferred devices.
It's perfect for our modern attention spans, right? We're bombarded with information. So breaking a story down makes it more digestible.
Absolutely. And second, segmentation creates this sense of anticipation and suspense. You know the audience is left wanting more, eager to uncover the next piece. It's like those cliffhangers in a TV series, but amplified for the digital age.
Like leaving breadcrumbs for your audience to follow, leading them deeper into the story.
Exactly. And finally, segmentation allows for greater audience participation. When a story is spread across multiple platforms, people can comment, share, remix, and even create their own content inspired by the story.
So it's not just about consuming the story, it's about becoming a part of it, shaping it, adding your voice.
Precisely. And that's one of the things that makes digital storytelling so exciting. It blurs the lines between storyteller and audience, creator and consumer.
Like we're all becoming storytellers in the digital age. But with all this talk about technology and techniques, it's easy to lose sight of the most important element of any story, the human element.
You're absolutely right. At the end of the day, digital storytelling is still about connecting with others, sharing our experiences, exploring the human condition. Technology is just a tool. It's the story itself and the emotions it evokes that really matter.
I love that. It's a good reminder that even in this digital age, storytelling is still about human connection. So as we're wrapping up part 2 of this deep dive, what's one key takeaway you want our listeners to remember about creating compelling digital stories?
I want them to remember that the most important ingredient in any story, digital or otherwise, is heart. If you can connect with your audience on an emotional level, if you can make them feel something, then you've succeeded as a storyteller.
That's beautiful advice. And it's something we should all strive for, whether we're writing a novel, creating a podcast, or simply sharing a story with a friend.
Exactly. Storytelling is fundamental to what makes us human. It's how we make sense of the world, how we connect, and how we pass on our knowledge, our experiences.
Welcome back to the final part of our deep dive, digital storytelling.
It's been a journey, hasn't it? From those early forms of digital storytelling to the rise of social media, immersive games, we've seen how technology has reshaped how we tell stories. and how we experience them.
Yeah, it really feels like we're in a golden age of storytelling, with so many platforms and tools at our fingertips. But now I'm wondering, where do we go from here? What does the future hold for digital storytelling?
That is the question, isn't it? And while I don't have that crystal ball, I do see some exciting trends that could completely change the storytelling landscape in the coming years.
Ooh, I like a good glimpse into the future. What trends have you excited?
Well, one that I'm fascinated by is spatial storytelling, especially with augmented and mixed reality.
I've heard a lot of buzz about AR and MR lately, but I'm still not quite sure how they relate to storytelling. Can you break that down for me?
Okay, so imagine walking down the street, you're using your smartphone or some AR glasses, and you see these digital characters or objects superimposed on your surroundings.
So it's like Pokemon Go, but instead of catching Pokemon, you're running into characters from a story.
Exactly. Or imagine going to a live theater performance where digital effects blend seamlessly with the stage, creating this truly immersive, interactive experience.
Wow, that sounds incredible, like you're blurring the lines between reality and fantasy.
Precisely. And mixed reality goes even further by allowing those digital elements to actually interact with the physical environment. Imagine having a conversation with a digital character or handing them a real object that they can then use in that virtual world.
It's like stepping into a sci-fi movie. I could see how that would be incredibly engaging. Are we really there yet, though? Is the technology advanced enough to create those seamless experiences?
The technology is advancing rapidly. AR and MR hardware and software are becoming more sophisticated, more affordable. But to create truly convincing interactive elements, it still requires a lot of processing power and creative ingenuity.
So it's not just about the technology. It's about how we use it to tell compelling stories. What are some of the narrative challenges of creating spatial storytelling experiences?
Well, one of the biggest challenges is how to tell a story in a three-dimensional space, where the audience can move around and interact. Traditional storytelling structures, a linear plot, a single point of view, those might not work so well.
It's like the difference between writing a novel and writing for immersive theater. You have to think about the audience being physically present and how they're going to move through the story.
Exactly. We're going to need new techniques, new conventions for spatial narratives. It's a challenge for writers, directors, designers.
I can see how that would be a fascinating area to explore.
Yeah.
What other trends are you seeing?
Another trend I'm excited about is personalization, customization. As AI and machine learning get more sophisticated, we'll see stories tailored to individual preferences and experiences.
So instead of everyone having the same story, it'd be like a custom narrative, crafted just for you.
Precisely. Imagine a choose-your-own-adventure, where the choices are based on your past reading preferences, your personality, even your mood, or a movie that adapts its plot based on how you're reacting.
Wow, that sounds amazing, but also kind of creepy. Like having a storyteller who knows you better than you know yourself. But isn't there a risk of losing that shared experience if everyone's in their own little world?
That's a valid concern. It's about finding a balance between personalization and shared experiences. Maybe we'll see stories that have individual and collective elements, where you can have your own path, but connect with others who are in the same story world.
I can see that. Like in a video game where each player has their own quest, but then they have to team up to reach a goal.
Exactly. It's leveraging tech to enhance the individual and the collective. And as digital storytelling keeps evolving, I think we'll see more blurring of lines between media and entertainment.
What do you mean?
Well, think about it. Games are becoming more cinematic. They're adding storytelling, character development, things that used to be just for movies and novels. And movies are getting more interactive, with VR immersing viewers in the story.
It's like it's all merging into this one big storytelling world.
Exactly. And we, as consumers and creators, will have more choices, more opportunities than ever before. It's exciting and a little daunting.
It is. So, as we wrap up our deep dive into digital storytelling, what's that one key takeaway you want to leave us with?
I want you to remember that digital storytelling is always evolving. It's constantly changing, full of possibilities and challenges. It's up to all of us as consumers and creators to shape the future of storytelling in this digital age.
That's a great point. We're not just watching, we're a part of it. So as you continue your own journey into digital storytelling, remember to embrace the unknown, experiment, and always remember the power of story, to connect, to inspire, and to make a difference.
Beautifully said. And don't forget to have fun.
Absolutely. Storytelling is all about sharing our joy, our curiosity,
our passion for the world.
See you next time on the Facilitators Deep Dive Podcast, your podcast on your way to facilitation mastery. Until next time.
See you then.